Welcome to the Rich Report, a podcast with news and information on startups. Today, my guest is Ira Williams. Ira is president of PriceAdvice. Welcome to the show, Ira.
Thanks very much, Suresh. I appreciate it.
Hey, I really appreciate you coming on the show. I'm kind of intrigued about what you guys are up to. Can you tell us a little bit more in your slides here?
I'd love to. And again, I thank you for the opportunity to introduce you and your audience to PriceAdvice.com. And we are known as the Blue Book for everything else. So if you go ahead and switch to that first slide there, the problem we were looking to solve is pretty straightforward. There really has never been a simple yet comprehensive source for what we refer to as fair market prices for used consumer products. Now, there are two reasons for that. One is that, frankly, most manufacturers historically kind of ignored the residual product value because there weren't really secondary markets out there. You could certainly buy a used car, but after that it was really pretty hard to find a secondary market for common consumer goods. Well, then along came eBay and Amazon and Craigslist, and the secondary market came to life. And so we believe and we feel that PriceAdvice really represents the next step in that evolution, in that we're helping people navigate the secondary market. Now, the second reason why the secondary market really never got attention was, frankly, it's kind of hard to get that information in a standardized, clean way. And as I'll kind of lead you through in a moment, we've done a lot of the heavy lifting to make sure that's now possible. So if you go to the next slide, let me just share a few facts about us and about our company. We've actually been around since 2006, and we've been really digging into large amounts of data is kind of our expertise, and then being able to clean it up and present it to consumers in a useful fashion. We've been working with data from eBay, obviously, because it is one of the largest, if not the largest, online secondary market. And we've basically used the transactions themselves as the source of our valuation information. And that's important for a couple of reasons. The analogy I like to use is that when you're buying a house, you want to find out what the comparable homes in the neighborhood have actually sold for, not what the asking price was. So for us, we feel like it is very important for us not just to look at asking prices, but to look at actual transactions that have taken place for the various items that are in our database. So all of our valuations are based on hundreds of thousands of actual transactions. We've also developed proprietary processes that allow us to basically clean up that data, as I mentioned earlier. A good example I like to use is if you ever look at eBay or any other secondary market, there's virtually no way to completely know exactly how someone's going to list an item. You could see someone calls it an iPod, lowercase I, capital P, O-D. Some put a hash mark between it, I-pod. Some call it iPod 32 GB. Well, all those things are probably the same item. They could be the same item, but unless someone has gone through the trouble and, frankly, written some pretty sophisticated code to clean all that up, it's very difficult to get any sort of standardization out of it. And so we've done all that. We've got some great unique IP that lets us be very efficient and make the information much more useful. And finally, that all allows us to sort of curate these terabytes of data very efficiently. We deliver it in a valuable format to the consumer, and most importantly for them, it's free. So if you go ahead and take a look at the next slide, I'd like to kind of take you through what we think of as being a garden variety search on our part. First of all, we're looking at this slide here. It's got a beautiful Rolex Daytona watch. Typically sells for upwards of $30,000. Now, if you're like me, Rich, that's something that you might aspire to. But right about now, I'm not necessarily in the market for a brand new used Rolex Daytona. But I would certainly entertain, in this scenario at least, the price for a used Rolex Daytona. Now, what's the fair market price? What should I pay for a used Rolex Daytona? Well, historically, what people would do is, if you go to the next slide, you'd start off looking at some other sites. You might look at Amazon. You might look at eBay. If you're really bold, you might actually go into Craigslist and see what somebody's offering it for. Ultimately, though, you get to the point you realize, man, it is very difficult to find a true consensus for the price of that item, and you're really no smarter than you were before. Well, here's where PriceAdvice comes along. For us to do that same search and to find out the value for a used Rolex Daytona, it's a very simple thing. The first thing you'll do is come to our site, and you'll see a search bar that's waiting to be filled in there. You type in Rolex Daytona, and the next slide, the next screen you should get is basically our search results page, which brings a lot of information forward in a very easy to read and easy to digest format. Now, one of the key things we have, and you'll notice at the top of the page on the next slide, is our pricing bell curve. Now, let me stop and give you a bit of an idea of what we're looking at here. What this basically does is give you a visual representation of the range of prices that this particular watch is sold for over the last several months on the used market. Now, once again, this is not a case of where it's been asked, what the asking price has been, or what people have tried to sell it for. These are actual transactions that show that it has been sold from anywhere between $6,600 all the way up to $25,000, and that right now the average price that it's been sold for is about $12,100. Now, from here, you're a much smarter consumer. You can decide that the person who's trying to sell it to you, maybe on eBay, you could find somebody who's trying to sell it to you at a used watch retailer in your neighborhood. But at least now you have a starting point. You have a valuation that's based upon actual transactions. So now let's say for the sake of this demonstration, you look at that second picture there, and it's the Rolex Daytona SS. That's the one you really, really want. So if you were to click on it, and you go to the next slide, you'd see what we refer to as our product detail page. Now, that detail page has a whole lot of information on it. First of all, it's got a refined pricing curve. So once again, this particular model of the Rolex Daytona has sold for between $8,269 all the way up to a little over $17,000. But below that, you also have information about the Rolex manufacturer. You have information about the product itself. We try to make you an even more informed consumer and give you as much detail as possible about that particular product. And once again, if you've now decided that's the watch you want, we know where you can sell it or where you can buy it, then if you were to click on that top left icon, you'd go right into eBay, right into the auction page, or if it was an Amazon item, you'd go right to the product checkout page, add it to your cart, and you're well on your way to making your purchase. So in our mind, that's the cleanest and easiest way to actually find the value of a pretty difficult to gauge used item. We've also created an iPhone app, if you look at the next slide, that helps bring the PriceAdvice experience to the mobile platform. And we do that without sacrificing the ability to actually search for the best deals. And you'll notice across the bottom there, we have a number of different brands that we can that we have products listed for as well. So we started off in watches, and again, it's a category that we're extremely excited about because it does have some pretty intriguing opportunities for us to show consumers how readily we can filter through lots and lots of data, give them a good, consistent interface and a good, consistent experience, and help them be smarter consumers. Now, our plan is to develop similarly detailed pricing tools for multiple product categories. Now, we've launched with premium watches, and then we moved on to tablet computers. Now, the search for tablet computers, very similar to what we did before. We're going to start off with typing in the title of the product. In this case, let's type in the Zoom. And so when we click on that and go to the next slide, what comes back is a product detail, a search result page, And you can notice along the left side there, we have a number of ways that you can go through and refine the search and find exactly what you're looking for in terms of models, features, and so on. And so what this search function really shows is our ability to help consumers navigate through huge volumes of data very, very easily. One of the things I always like to point out is that if you're really in a hurry to get this item and buy it now, well, that's one of the features that we have that eBay offers, and then obviously Amazon offers is these items are for sale right now. You can click on it, and you're ready to check out instantly. Or if you'd like to play the auction option, then we can let you filter and just look at things that are available for auction and wait those out for another day or two until the auctions close. But the point is, you as a consumer have a lot more information about the products that are available and how you choose to buy them, and we help you navigate through that process very well. Now, we've also decided, because now that we're in the tablet space and we're starting to assess the values and the secondary markets in the tablets, it's pretty clear that there is a pretty unique slot and pretty unique place that the iPad has within that market. Not only is it a great product, but there's also a very active secondary market for iPads. And so we found that the first generation iPads are actually retaining their value remarkably well. Now, this is pretty unusual for a technology product, as you all know, Rich, because the automotive business is one that really places a high value on the product maintaining its value, its price value over time, and people will say the Lexus does a great job of holding its value over time. Well, for most computers and electronics, there's a very rapid curve that the price falls down and the value falls down over time. Well, what we've found is that with our data and our analysis has shown that the first generation iPad has actually only declined by about 25% below the initial offering price, the initial price it was offered 1 year ago. Now, that compares to the Motorola Xoom, which launched just a few months ago, and it has already lost about 20% of its value just in those first few months. Now, to different consumers, that information may mean different things. To some who are perhaps Apple fans, they'll say, that's yet another reason why I'm going to buy an iPad. I know it's going to retain its value, and it's a quality product. Someone else may look at it and go, man, that Xoom must be a real deal because the price is so much lower than it was at when it was offered, and it's only a few months old. We're not making a value judgment. We simply make the information available and allow consumers to make the decision they want to make. But that's one of those examples of how we're able to mine through our data and then make available the information to the consumers so that they make an informed decision. And so if you go to that next slide there, you get a picture of what we refer to as our showcase for the iPad. And again, this is intended to be a one-stop shop where consumers can get up-to-date pricing as well as product information. We've got video clips there specifically about an iPad and what it makes or what it takes to make a good purchase of a used iPad. And so this showcase is actually one of our test beds right now to really help understand how consumers like to probe through our data, what sorts of features they like to see, and as importantly, what's going to make them better and more informed consumers of, in this case, the iPad. The bottom line is that we're extremely excited about the future. We're planning to launch new categories every few weeks or so, and we expect consumers will continue to find our Blue Book services to be easy to use and very informative. And that's Price Advice in a nutshell.
Well, very good, Ira. I guess my first question that comes to mind with this is, what was the genesis of this? Were you guys finding yourself frustrated with the buying experience on places like Craigslist, or how did it get started?
That's a great question. It actually was the idea of one of our founders was a huge collector. And what he was finding is that it was actually difficult to upload large amounts of his products, the things that he was collecting, up to eBay. He just saw a number of technical challenges, a number of data challenges, and he essentially said, well, there's got to be a better way here. And so a lot of what got us started in this whole process of optimizing and clarifying and rationalizing the data itself and the naming conventions that are used and being able to make sure that somebody can go to a single database and know exactly what that product is called before they upload it to eBay. Well, that didn't exist before, and so really for the first couple of years, a lot of our time and energy was spent trying to get that figured out. And as we got good at that and as we developed the expertise there and the IP to help us do that, we realized that there's actually yet another opportunity, which is what has evolved into Price Advice, which is that now that we've got the ability to grab large amounts of data, process it, find the pricing, do the math, if you will, and create the curves, well, gosh, that seems like something that ought to be made available to consumers and allow them to make better purchase decisions of the used products that are actually for sale on eBay and Amazon and elsewhere. And so that's really how we kind of evolved into creating Price Advice.
And so the data that you guys are gathering, is this all publicly available, or do you have pipelines into places like eBay to get information?
Great question. In fact, what we try to do, in fact, what we have done is start off with the publicly available information, which is as raw can be. And that's, you can license that, you can download that, and again, you got to have some pretty big pipes and a place to put it all. But what really makes us unique and what adds value is that we take all of that information that is, basically just almost discarded by the marketplaces, and we refine it, and we will do our analysis on top of it. And just as importantly, we're doing a lot of that cleaning exercise that I mentioned before so that what ends up coming back into, in this case, to our consumers by way of price advice is much more, I'd call it much more relevant and also much more useful than what you can get directly out of eBay, let's say. And let's also keep in mind that, we love eBay as a channel. It's a phenomenal marketplace. But by definition, they're looking to make sure that the transactions that are, the auctions that are underway right now are closed auctions, and they are, things are being sold today. What happened last week or last month or 6 months ago is really of secondary concern to them. Well, from our standpoint, that's of, if not primary concern, maybe a secondary concern, because we can actually take that data, do some analysis on it, and then provide it to consumers today to make sure that the purchases they're making are informed purchases. So the fact that there is an iPad on sale right now on eBay for $425 is useful if I'm ready to buy it right now. But if I also know that 3 months ago, over the last 3 months, the average price has been $455, then I'm more inclined to make the purchase, because I know that I'm getting a $30 better price than the market has seen in the last 3 months.
So I'm curious, how do you deal with anomalies like these bogus guys that might have an iPad out there for $79 or something like that? That Google will pop that right to the top. How do you deal with that kind of situation?
Yeah, that's a lot of our algorithm work is done to kind of filter those things out. And I'll be honest, it's something we're constantly working on to refine. But we've spent a lot of time trying to weed out the noise, as they say, in those data streams, because it does, frankly, impairs our ability to provide a good product, a good service to our consumers. So part of it is simply being able to anticipate that if something is too far outside of outside of the scope, then we at least put the item aside. We'll manually go through sometimes and recheck it to see if it's even the same product. Some cases, going back to the whole data integrity problem, you've got somebody who's using the same keywords, but they're selling an accessory for that product. That's pretty common as well. Well, we've got yet another set of filters that go through and kind of weed out the accessories and try to focus on the actual product itself. It's far more difficult than I've just made it sound, and that's part of why we're very proud of the intellectual property we've got and some of those algorithms I mentioned, because they really do an amazing job of cleaning up what is arguably a very messy data stream. Got a lot of value in there, a lot of nuggets of good information and good data, but you've got to weed through a fair bit to get to it. And once we've done that, then we can turn around and make it available to our consumers, and they enjoy the fact they can get at it for free of charge.
So I guess the next question is, how do you guys make money? This is free, right?
That's always the question. That's a very important question for those of us who are employees, let me tell you. It's pretty straightforward. We have an advertising sales stream. We do collect affiliate fees and commissions on any of the transactions that we help facilitate on eBay and on Amazon. And we also have a licensing and a subscription line of business that we're also looking to push forward, which essentially mirrors what other similar data sources have done to make a kind of a viable business model. It's usually all three of the above, and for us, that's the same goal we have is, let's focus on advertising, let's earn the commissions where we can, and where possible, let's also license our technology and have subscribers paying us for that.
Well, Ira, have you just decided to focus on the consumer market, or have you considered the enterprise market, like in the procurement area? Because I come from the HPC side, place where people buy these big computers, and half the cost of the device is the memory parts, right? So I could see something like this.
Yeah.
Boy, if they could save, 5-10% on the memory parts, they'd have a huge advantage.
Well, the great news about that is that we focus on the consumer for the most logical reason, which is that there's roughly a $400 billion market in secondary market in used products each year in America. So that's a massive place to wade into and provide the kinds of services that help people navigate those $400 billion in transactions. That said, there's no reason why the data and the tools that we have could not be applied to more of a professional audience. It's ironic you mentioned the memory, because I was at an event not too long ago, and one of the guys said, "Well, what could you do to help me find some memory for my PCs?" And I said, "Well, it's not one of our our lead categories, obviously, but let me go into our database." And again, we've got this data anyway. These transactions have taken place someplace out there. And sure enough, we were able to pull up, and I don't remember, I'm not a memory guy, but I don't remember the spec, but sure enough, he found what he was looking for just using PriceAdvice in its current form. So as a long answer to your question, it certainly is possible for us to turn around and begin offering this to the professional audience, and it's certainly something we're going to be keeping our eye on.
Well, hey, Ira, I really appreciate you coming on the show. I think this is pretty exciting stuff, and I'm just wondering if the insurance companies will be calling on you to help them value the stuff that gets stolen or damaged out there for its real value.
That's another great killer app, as they say. And as I mentioned before, we're not trying to take sides. We're just trying to be the objective servant of good information. But it's been great talking to you about it, and I look forward to keeping you updated as we continue to grow in the future.
Well, thanks for that. That's it for the Rich Report, folks. Stay tuned for more news and information on the world of startups.